When a young mechanic stumbles upon an old military crate at an auction, she has no idea that the contents inside will change everything. What seems like just another forgotten relic soon unravels into a mystery that challenges everything she thought she knew. With the crate's contents shrouded in secrecy and a world of danger just beyond the horizon, her journey to uncover the truth will take her to places she never imagined. What's inside? It's more than just metal, it's a game changer. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. And if stories like this make your heart race, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode takes this mystery even further. Let's get started. The heat of the late afternoon sun beat down on the dusty lot, casting long shadows over the collection of forgotten objects. Harley Vega stood in front of her beat-up pickup truck, boots planted firmly on the cracked gravel as she surveyed the auction. Rows of rusted farm equipment, old military surplus, and heaps of discarded metal littered the grounds. To the untrained eye, it was a graveyard of history. But to Harley, it was a treasure trove, each piece telling a story, each part an opportunity to breathe life back into something long forgotten. She wasn't a collector. She wasn't here to buy artifacts. Harley was a mechanic, a fixer. Her fingers ached to touch the things that others had given up on, to bring them back from the brink of destruction. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the satisfaction of turning something broken into something whole again. Her eyes wandered over the assorted piles of junk, then stopped on a large, weathered, military crate tucked away near the back of the lot. It was unremarkable to the casual observer, just another box among the others. But to Harley, it was different. The faded green paint and the faint stenciled letters on the side screamed of history, property of the United States. There was something almost alive about it, as though it had a story to tell, a secret buried inside. And Harley was always drawn to the secrets. The auctioneer's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. Next up, Lot 42, a military surplus crate. No one knows exactly what's inside, but it's been in storage for decades. Opening bid, $300. Harley's heart quickened. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her truck's door. She glanced around, watching the other bidders. Most of them were here for farm equipment or old tools. No one seemed particularly interested in the crate. $300! The auctioneer called again. The silence was thick, the air heavy with the anticipation of a bargain. No one else bid. $400. Harley's voice cut through the quiet air. The words felt like they had been dragged out of her, like an instinct she couldn't ignore. The auctioneer paused, eyes flicking to the back of the lot where Harley stood. A smirk spread across his face. $400 for the crate. Any takers? The seconds stretched, and Harley's heart pounded in her chest. Nobody else moved. She could feel the weight of the decision in the pit of her stomach. This wasn't just a crate, it was something more. Something that called to her. She had to have it. $500! Harley called out, her voice rising with determination. The gavel came down with a sharp bang. Sold! Lot 42 to the lady in the back. A thrill ran through her as the crowd dispersed, and Harley made her way toward the crate. The smell of old metal, wood, and something faintly metallic filled the air. Her pulse raced as she approached the crate. It was bigger than she had anticipated, and the weight of it seemed to pull at her. Her fingers brushed the rusted metal as she looked at the crate, wondering what secrets it held. It wasn't just the military markings or the age of it that intrigued her. There was something else, something intangible, almost like the crate had been waiting for her. Harley didn't know what was inside, but deep down, she knew this was more than just another project. This was the project. She made her way back to her truck, the crate now secured for transport, and glanced back one last time. Something about the way the fading sunlight hit the crate made her think, for the first time, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't going to be a simple fix. It was going to be something bigger than anything she had ever encountered. The crate sat in the corner of Harley's shop, hidden beneath the harsh fluorescent lights that flickered on and off like they couldn't decide if they were working or not. The shop smelled of oil, grease, and the faint hint of burned rubber, a familiar, comforting scent. Her workbench was scattered with tools and half-finished projects, but today, none of it mattered. The crate had claimed her attention. Harley stood in front of it, arms crossed, studying the old military crate. It was even more imposing up close, its surface scratched and worn, the markings barely visible beneath layers of dirt and grime. Her pulse quickened as she stared at the heavy wooden lid, which appeared sealed shut by time itself. She felt drawn to it, as though some invisible force was pushing her toward it. She had spent the morning cleaning up the shop, sweeping up the gravel and oil stains, but her eyes kept drifting back to the crate. The auction win had been a quiet victory, a small triumph in a sea of bigger battles. But this was different. This was a mystery, a challenge, an opportunity, and she couldn't resist it. With a grunt, she crouched down and grabbed a crowbar. The metal was cold in her hands as she wedged it beneath the lip of the crate. The wood groaned as she applied pressure, but it didn't budge. Harley bit her lip in frustration. She wasn't used to things resisting her like this. The crate was stubborn, more stubborn than anything she had worked on in years, but that only made her more determined. She stepped back, wiping the sweat from her brow. "Come on," she muttered, her voice steady but tinged with impatience. She reached for her next tool, a heavy-duty electric drill. The hum of the power tool filled the room as she drove screws into the side of the crate, slowly loosening the fasteners that had held it together for who knew how long. It wasn't pretty work, but she wasn't in the business of being pretty. She was a mechanic, a fixer, a problem solver. And this crate? It was going to be fixed. After what seemed like an eternity, the screws finally gave way with a satisfying pop. Harley paused, letting the silence fill the room for a moment, before reaching up to pry the lid open. It creaked loudly, the sound echoing in the empty shop. As it lifted, dust fell away in a cloud, and a faint smell of old wood and rust filled the air. Her heart raced. What was inside? She was about to find out. The first thing she saw was a piece of fabric, a faded, olive-green tarp. She pulled it away carefully, revealing what lay beneath. It wasn't just some old military gear or equipment, as she had expected. No, what she found beneath that tarp made her freeze in place. A box. A sleek, silver box, shining with an eerie glow despite its age. The surface was smooth, almost metallic, and it had markings, military serial numbers etched into its surface. But there was something else. Something about the way the box gleamed in the dim light made Harley's stomach tighten. It was as if it had been waiting for her, waiting to be discovered. She reached out, hands trembling ever so slightly, and ran her fingers over the surface of the box. There were no sharp edges, no damage from the years it must have spent in storage. It felt unscathed, like it had been preserved with care. But why? Why was this box so special? Harley's mind raced as she leaned closer, inspecting the markings, trying to decipher their meaning. And then, as her eyes scanned the surface, she spotted a small, handwritten note tucked underneath the box. Her breath hitched as she pulled it free, unfolding the crumpled paper with careful hands. "If you find this, you know what to do." Her breath caught in her throat. What did it mean? And why was this note tucked away in the same crate as the mysterious silver box? It didn't make sense, but it felt important. The kind of important that set her skin alight with adrenaline. Harley stood there for a long moment, staring at the note and the box. Everything about this crate felt off, like it had been waiting for someone like her to find it. Her mind swirled with questions. What was inside the box? Who had hidden it away for so long? And why had it been left for her to find? She couldn't answer any of those questions just yet. But she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a simple crate full of junk. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Harley sat at her workbench, the silver box laid out in front of her like a puzzle begging to be solved. The note from the crate had burned a hole in her mind, the cryptic words still echoing in her thoughts. "If you find this, you know what to do." But what did that mean? What was she supposed to do with this box? And why had it been hidden away for so long? She reached out, tracing the markings on the surface of the box. It was smooth, almost too smooth, like it had been meticulously maintained. The military serial numbers etched into its surface were clear, but they didn't provide any answers. She could feel a pull to figure this out. Her hands itched with the need to understand, to make sense of what seemed like an impossible mystery. But first, she needed to open it. That much was certain. Harley grabbed a flashlight and shone it over the surface of the box, trying to find a lock, a hinge, anything that would give her a clue as to how to open it. There was nothing obvious, no latches or bolts, just that eerie smoothness. She tilted the box, listening for any sound, but the silence in the room was deafening. She turned it over in her hands, examining every angle, and that's when she noticed it, a faint seam running along the side of the box. It was almost invisible, as though someone had taken great care to conceal it. Her fingers brushed against it, feeling the slight groove in the metal. A lock? No, there was no keyhole. This wasn't a traditional lock. Harley's brow furrowed. She thought back to the auction. The crate had been sealed tightly. No one had been able to open it, not even the auctioneer. It was as though it had been made to stay closed, to remain a mystery. But why? She grabbed a small crowbar and pried at the seam carefully. The box didn't resist. It felt almost too easy, like it was waiting for her to unlock it. Her pulse quickened as the lid began to budge. Slowly, inch by inch, it creaked open. Inside, there was a small compartment, lined with velvet. Harley's breath caught in her throat as she leaned closer. The box wasn't empty. No, it held something far more intriguing than she could have imagined. Beneath the velvet lining, a small metal key rested quietly. It was worn, old, but still intact. Harley picked it up carefully, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. The key seemed heavy in her hand, its weight pulling at something deep inside her. She held it up to the light, inspecting it. There were no markings on it, nothing to indicate what it might unlock, but she knew this was the key to something much bigger than a forgotten crate. There was a purpose to this key. She could feel it. Harley's mind raced. Where did this key fit? What was it for? She placed the key down on the workbench, her heart pounding as she stared at it. Something told her this wasn't just about the box or the key. It was about the journey that had led her here, and that journey wasn't over yet. There was more to discover, more to understand. She had a sense of urgency now, a deep-seated knowing that she couldn't let this mystery slip away. The crate, the box, the key. It all had a meaning, a story that she needed to uncover. But where to begin? The weight of the key in her hand reminded her of something Rick, the old veteran from the pawn shop, had said. Something about history and danger. The thought made her spine tingle with unease. What had she stumbled upon? And why had it been hidden away for so long? She knew the key was just the beginning. The sun had barely risen the next morning when Harley started the engine of her truck. The early light filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the road as she drove through town. The radio hummed softly in the background, but her mind was elsewhere, consumed by the mystery of the crate and the key she had uncovered. The weight of it all felt heavier now, and she knew she couldn't face it alone. There was someone who might have answers, or at least be able to point her in the right direction. Rick had always been a bit of an enigma, but he was the closest thing Harley had to an ally when it came to all things military. A veteran with more stories than most people could handle, he ran a small pawn shop downtown, filled to the brim with oddities from the past. He had seen it all: old military gear, strange artifacts, things that had been forgotten by history, and he was never one to shy away from secrets. Harley parked in front of Rick's shop, the small bell above the door jingling as she pushed it open. The shop was dimly lit, the shelves crowded with old radios, faded photographs, tarnished metals, and boxes of dusty, yellowing documents. Behind the counter, Rick looked up from a pile of old war magazines. His face, framed by a salt and pepper beard, softened as he saw her. "Harley, what's going on?" he asked. his voice raspy from years of cigarette smoke. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Harley didn't waste time with pleasantries. She pulled the silver box from her bag and slid it across the counter toward him. Rick's expression immediately changed. His eyes narrowed, and the smile slipped from his face. "Where'd you get this?" he asked quietly, his fingers brushing the box as if it were something fragile, something dangerous. "A military auction," Harley replied, keeping her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "I didn't think much of it at first, but then I found this." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the key, setting it down beside the box. Rick's breath hitched as he picked up the key, inspecting it closely. His eyes flicked between the box and the key, his fingers trembling slightly. "Where did you find this, Harley?" he asked again, his voice low, almost a whisper. "You don't know what you've got here." "I know. It's a key," she said, her frustration mounting. "But what does it unlock? And why does it feel like there's something more to this?" Rick looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then, slowly, he pushed the box aside and leaned forward, lowering his voice even further. "You need to be careful, Harley. This isn't just some random military artifact. This is part of something bigger, something that's been hidden for years. People have died because of it." Harley's heart raced as she leaned in closer, her mind working overtime to process what he was saying. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What's inside this box?" Rick hesitated before speaking again, his voice barely above a whisper. "That box? It's not just a box. It's a safe, a secure vault. Inside it is something that people would kill for." He paused, his eyes meeting hers with a grave seriousness. "It's a military secret. A secret that was buried for a reason. And you, Harley, just opened the door." Harley recoiled, the weight of his words sinking in. "What kind of secret?" "I can't tell you everything," Rick said, shaking his head. "But this isn't just about an old military artifact. This is about something much bigger, something connected to intelligence and covert operations. It's a legacy of war and politics, and the people who are involved won't stop until they get their hands on it again." Rick stood up slowly and walked to the back of the shop, rummaging through a drawer. When he returned, he held a small, worn-out notebook. He handed it to Harley with a stern look. "Take this," he said. "It's a journal. It belonged to someone who knew about the crate and its contents. It's a piece of the puzzle. It won't give you all the answers, but it will give you something to work with." "How?" Harley took the notebook with trembling hands, her mind whirling with possibilities. She didn't know what to think anymore. The key, the box, the journal. What had she gotten herself into? She looked at Rick one last time, his eyes dark with concern. "You're not going to tell me what's inside the box?" Rick shook his head. "No, and neither should you. Not unless you're ready for the consequences. You've opened a door that should have stayed closed, Harley. Now you need to decide if you're ready to face what's on the other side." Harley turned and walked out of the shop, the notebook clutched tightly in her hands. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest as she climbed into her truck. She didn't know where this road was leading, but she knew one thing for sure. She couldn't turn back now. Harley didn't sleep much that night. The journal weighed heavily in her bag, each page thick with the secrets it seemed to carry. The night air outside was thick and warm as she sat at her workbench, staring at the small notebook Rick had given her. It was bound in dark, weathered leather, the edges cracked from years of neglect. She could feel the history in her hands, but it felt like she was holding on to something far bigger than a few forgotten pages. It was the kind of thing you didn't find every day, and Harley was beginning to wonder if it was the kind of thing she should have found. The clock on the wall ticked quietly, the only sound breaking the silence in the shop. Harley flicked the light on, her fingers brushing the worn cover of the journal as she opened it slowly. The first page was filled with meticulous handwriting. The ink had faded over time, but the words were still legible. She leaned in, reading carefully, her eyes scanning the words with urgency. The crate was locked for a reason. What lies inside can never see the light of day again. I fear the wrong people will come for it, and they won't stop until they get it." Harley paused, the hairs on the back of her neck rising. What could be so important that someone had gone to such lengths to hide it? She flipped through more pages, each one filled with cryptic notes and drawings of strange maps, military schematics, and what appeared to be a combination of coded messages. Whoever had written this had been deeply involved in whatever secret lay behind that crate. The key unlocks more than just the box. It opens a path to something that should have stayed buried. But it's too late now. They're already watching. Harley's stomach twisted. She had a feeling that this wasn't just some long-forgotten relic of war. It was something much more dangerous. Her mind raced with questions. Who wrote this? What did they know? Her fingers trembled as she turned another page, only to stop dead in her tracks. There, on the next page, was a familiar symbol. The same military insignia that had been etched into the crate and the silver box. It was more than just a decoration. It was a warning. If the crate is opened, the legacy of its contents will awaken. The enemy is not who you think it is, and they will stop at nothing to reclaim it. The words blurred as she read them again, and her heart started to pound. The enemy is not who you think it is. The words echoed in her head. What did that mean? Who was the enemy? The military markings, the hidden compartments, the journal, none of it made sense yet, but it was clear now that there was more at play here than just an abandoned crate. Something far more dangerous had been buried with it. She sat back, gripping the journal tightly in her hands. There had to be more to this. She couldn't let it go, not after everything she had discovered. It was like the crate had been calling to her, drawing her in with every step, every clue. Now, it felt like there was no turning back. Whatever had been sealed away, whatever was so dangerous, had now found its way into her hands. And the worst part? She wasn't sure if it was even her who was supposed to be solving this. The note, the key, it all felt wrong, like someone else's puzzle she was trying to complete. But she didn't have a choice. Whoever had left these clues didn't know who they were dealing with. Harley Vega wasn't about to walk away from a mystery like this. With a deep breath, she set the journal down and pulled out the silver key from her pocket. Holding it in her palm, she turned it over, inspecting it once more. The words from the journal echoed in her mind. It opens a path. Harley knew now that she had to find out what that path led to. The sun had barely begun to rise when Harley hit the road again, the journal and key in her bag, both weighing heavily on her mind. The day felt different, charged with an uneasy energy. The morning air was thick with humidity, clinging to the skin. But Harley didn't notice. Her thoughts were on the mystery that had consumed her, on the unanswered questions that she was determined to solve. She had spent the night reading through the journal again, trying to make sense of the fragmented clues. But it was like trying to read a book with pages torn out. The cryptic messages, the maps, and the coded references, none of it made complete sense yet. But there was one thing Harley was sure of. Someone was going to come for the box. She had felt it the moment she opened it, the eyes watching, the danger looming just beyond her reach. Whoever had sealed this crate away had gone to great lengths to hide its contents, and now that she had opened it, the clock was ticking. The engine of her truck hummed steadily beneath her as she drove to the one place that might offer more answers. An old, run-down military storage facility on the outskirts of town. The place was more myth than reality. Most people had forgotten it was even there, and those who remembered it did so with hushed voices, warning stories of security breaches and long-lost equipment never meant to be found. Harley had heard rumors of the facility for years, but it had always seemed like a distant ghost story, something too far-fetched to bother with. But now, it was the only lead she had. According to the journal, this place had some connection to the crate and its contents, maybe even the key itself. She parked outside the rusted gate, the facility looming in the distance, its tall fences and barbed wire giving it an air of foreboding. The building was silent, its windows darkened, as if the entire complex had been abandoned. But Harley knew better. Places like this, places with secrets, never stayed empty for long. With a quick glance over her shoulder, Harley grabbed the key and made her way toward the entrance. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but she had to start somewhere. The key was the only tangible clue she had left, and the journal hinted that it could open something here, something she hadn't seen yet. The moment she stepped inside, the smell of old metal, dust, and decay hit her. The floor creaked beneath her boots, and every shadow seemed to stretch just a little too far. The facility was dim, but Harley's eyes adjusted quickly as she moved through the corridors, her footsteps echoing in the empty silence. It felt like she was walking through a ghost town, except she wasn't alone. She could feel the weight of eyes on her, like someone or something was watching her every move. But she didn't stop. She couldn't afford to. At the far end of the facility, she found a heavy steel door, its surface scratched and scarred from years of neglect. There was a small slot in the center, just big enough for the key. Harley hesitated for a moment, her fingers tight around the cold metal. This was it, the moment she'd been waiting for. The door felt like a final threshold, the kind you cross when you know there's no turning back. Taking a deep breath, she slid the key into the slot and turned it. The mechanism clicked. A low groan reverberated through the walls as the door slowly creaked open. Harley's heart raced as she pushed it wide, revealing a room bathed in eerie darkness. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and forgotten history. She stepped inside, her eyes immediately drawn to a small pedestal in the center of the room. On it sat an object, covered by a tattered cloth. Harley's breath caught in her throat. She had no idea what it was, but she could feel it calling to her. With a trembling hand, she reached forward and lifted the cloth away. Beneath it lay a small, ancient-looking device, its design unfamiliar, yet strangely familiar at the same time. It was metallic, intricate, like something that had been built for a purpose beyond simple military use. Her fingers hovered over it, her mind racing. This was it. This was the path the journal had spoken of. But what was it? Why had it been hidden away? And more importantly, who else knew it was here? Before she could answer those questions, a sudden noise echoed behind her. A shadow moved in the doorway. Harley spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't alone. The sound of footsteps echoed in the narrow corridor behind Harley, growing louder with each passing second. Her heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively took a step back from the pedestal, her hand brushing against the cold surface of the mysterious device. Her eyes darted toward the doorway, her body tensing, ready to react. But the figure that emerged from the shadows was not what she expected. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped into the dim light, his face partially obscured by the hood of his jacket. His eyes glinted with a sharp, calculating look, and despite the cold air of the abandoned facility, he gave off an unmistakable warmth of danger. He didn't seem surprised to find her there, almost like he had been waiting for her. "Didn't think I'd find someone else here," he said, his voice low and smooth, almost too calm for someone who had just walked into a room full of secrets. "But I suppose you were always going to find your way here eventually." Harley's pulse quickened. She instinctively reached for the small tool belt around her waist, the cold metal of her wrench, a comfort in her hands, but she kept it by her side, not wanting to escalate the situation just yet. She sized him up, but there was something about his presence, something calculated that made her wary. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady, but the edge of fear crept in. The man smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "A friend, or perhaps not. It depends on how you look at it." He stepped closer, his boots echoing off the cold concrete floor. Harley could feel her back tighten, her mind racing for an escape plan. But there was nowhere to go. "I'm not here to cause trouble," the man continued, his voice still calm. "But you've stumbled onto something that isn't meant for the average person to find." Harley clenched her jaw. "What's that supposed to mean?" He let out a short laugh, a sound that didn't match the situation. "It means that box you've got, that key you're holding, it's part of something bigger. Something I've been searching for years." His eyes flicked over to the device on the pedestal. "And you, Harley, are standing right in front of it. The thing that's going to change everything." Harley's mind raced. "Change everything? What are you talking about? He took another step closer, his gaze never leaving her. It's a weapon, a tool of destruction, or salvation, depends on who controls it. He paused, studying her face. And right now, that key? It's the key to unlocking something that could either save or destroy us all. I'm here to make sure it's used for the right reason. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was getting bigger than she had ever imagined. Her hands tightened around the tool at her side. And who are you to decide what the right reason is? She demanded, her voice a little sharper than she intended. The man didn't flinch. He stepped forward, closer to the pedestal, but stopped short. Let's just say, I've been tracking this thing for a long time. It's been hidden for years, kept away from people like me. And now that you've unlocked it, well, the people I work for aren't going to let you walk out of here with it. Harley took a step back, a knot tightening in her stomach. People he works for? This was no longer about an abandoned crate. This was about something much bigger, something far beyond her comprehension. What do you want from me? She asked, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. The man looked at her with a sort of amused pity, as though he had been expecting this question all along. I don't want anything from you, Harley. But I have orders. And those orders say that this device can't go public. It needs to stay hidden, locked away. It's too dangerous for anyone to get their hands on. Especially someone like you. Her grip on the tool tightened. You don't know anything about me, she snapped, trying to steady herself. I'm not just some random person who stumbled onto this. I'm the one who found it. And if it's really as important as you say, then maybe I'm the one who should decide what happens to it. The man's face darkened, and he took another step forward. You think you have a choice in this? You think you control this? There are forces at play here far beyond your understanding. Harley's mind raced, but she knew she had to stay calm. If she could just keep him talking, to keep him off balance. Then why not tell me? Why not explain what's going on here? She could feel the sweat trickling down her spine. You're here to take it from me, but you haven't even told me what it is or why it matters. The man's eyes narrowed. You'll learn soon enough. But it's too late for explanations now. You've already opened the door, Harley, and there's no going back. Harley didn't know what he meant by that, but she could feel it in her gut. He was right about one thing. She had opened the door. Now, she had to decide how far she was willing to go to uncover the truth. Before she could respond, the man took a quick step toward her, eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Listen carefully, he said, his voice low and dangerous. If you want to walk out of here alive, you'll hand over what you've found. Now, before it's too late. Harley's heart raced in her chest as the man's words echoed in her ears. Too late. Her fingers tightened around the tool at her side, the metal cold against her palm. She couldn't back down now, not after everything she'd been through. I'm not handing anything over to you, she said, her voice steady despite the knot of fear tightening in her stomach. She took a half step back, putting more distance between herself and the man who was now circling her, eyes never leaving her. The man stopped, his lips curling into a thin, mocking smile. You're not in control here, Harley. You never were. His tone dropped, almost like he was speaking to a child. What you've uncovered is dangerous, far beyond anything you can understand. Harley's eyes flicked to the object on the pedestal. The device, the key, everything felt like it was building up to this moment, like a storm was about to break. She could feel the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She wasn't ready for this. Hell, she hadn't even known what she was looking for when she'd first stumbled onto the crate. But she was in this now. There was no turning back. The man stepped closer, but Harley didn't flinch. Her fingers brushed against the device on the pedestal as she tried to make sense of the chaos swirling inside her. What is this thing? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. What does it do? The man stopped, studying her for a long moment. It was as though he was considering whether or not to answer, his gaze flicking between Harley and the device. Then, finally, he spoke, his words deliberate and heavy with meaning. It's not just a device, he said slowly. It's a catalyst, A tool of control. The key you found? It's not just a key to a box, Harley. It's a key to something much, much bigger. Something powerful. Harley's brow furrowed. Powerful? The words hung in the air like a threat, and she could feel her pulse thudding in her ears. "Who are you working for?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "And what do you mean by powerful?" The man's eyes flickered with something dark, something she couldn't quite place. He took another step toward her. "I'm not here to explain everything to you, Harley. I'm here to retrieve what's mine, what we need." His gaze dropped to the key in her hand. "The people I work for have been searching for this for years. It was hidden away for a reason, to keep it from falling into the wrong hands. And now that you've found it, they're coming for it. And for you." Harley felt the breath catch in her chest as the weight of his words settled in. It was like her entire world had shifted on its axis. She had opened a door, and now there was no going back. "I don't care who you work for," she said, her voice hardening. "I'm not handing it over. If this thing is as dangerous as you say, then I'll figure it out myself." The man's smile faded, replaced by a cold, hard look. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. If you think you can handle this on your own, you're mistaken. The people I work for, they won't stop until they have it back. And they won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who gets in their way." Harley could feel the intensity of his gaze, his words sinking deep into her chest. But as the man took another step toward her, something inside her clicked. She wasn't going to let him intimidate her. Not now. Not after everything she had gone through to get this far. She tightened her grip on the key, her eyes narrowing. "If you think I'm just going to hand it over to you, you're wrong." Her voice was sharp now, like a blade cutting through the tension in the room. "You want it? You'll have to take it from me." For a brief moment, the man's expression faltered. His gaze flicked to the key in her hand, then back to her face. But there was something else in his eyes now, something that told Harley this wasn't over. He nodded slowly, as though acknowledging her defiance. "You're making a mistake, but that's the choice you've made." He paused, his voice lowering to a dangerous murmur. "The clock is ticking, Harley. The moment you open that box, you set something in motion. And now you're in it. There's no way out. Not anymore." He turned sharply, moving toward the door. "Enjoy your moment of victory, but it won't last long." As he stepped out into the darkened hallway, he threw one last, loaded glance over his shoulder. "We'll see each other again. Count on it." Harley stood frozen in the silence that followed. Her heart pounded in her chest as the door creaked shut behind him. Her fingers trembled around the key in her hand, but she refused to let it go. She was in this now. No matter what it took, she was going to find out the truth about the device and why it had been hidden away. But the danger was real. The man had made that clear. And now, she was on the radar of whoever he worked for. The clock was ticking, and she had no idea how far this would go. But one thing was for sure: she wasn't backing down. Harley couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at the edge of something she couldn't control. The man's words echoed in her mind, each one more chilling than the last. There's no way out now. Not anymore. It wasn't just a warning. It was a truth that weighed on her chest like an anvil. She had opened the door, and now the consequences were unfolding, one after another. The dim light of the facility flickered above her, casting long shadows over the device on the pedestal. The key still sat in her hand, its cold metal sending shivers down her spine. She had been holding it for what felt like an eternity, but now it felt heavier than ever. What was she supposed to do with it? Her mind raced, jumping from one thought to another. The man who had confronted her, the cryptic journal, the key, it was all building to something monumental. But what if she wasn't ready for it? What if this thing, this device, wasn't something she could just fix or figure out on her own? She wasn't a soldier, or a government agent, or some kind of secret operative. She was a mechanic. She fixed cars, trucks, and engines, not ancient military weapons or covert operations. But it wasn't just about the device. It was about the people who had kept it hidden, The people who had gone to such lengths to ensure that it never saw the light of day. The journal, the key, the warnings, it all pointed to something bigger. Something that needed to stay buried. And yet, she had uncovered it. Harley paced back and forth in the cramped room, her boots tapping against the concrete floor as the silence stretched on. The decision she had to make felt like a weight pressing down on her shoulders, suffocating her. Part of her wanted to walk away, to leave the device where it was, lock the door, and never look back. It was the safe choice, the smart choice. But then there was the other part of her, the part that refused to back down, the part that was tired of running from problems, of letting them fester just because they were too big to face. She had found this, she had opened the door, and now she couldn't just walk away. A sudden thought hit her with the force of a hammer. What if they were right? What if the device was something dangerous, something that the world wasn't ready for? What if it could destroy lives, entire cities, or worse? The man had said it was a tool of control, a weapon. She stopped in her tracks, staring at the device again, her heart pounding in her chest. Could she really be the one to decide what happened next? Could she keep this thing safe, hidden away, like it had been for so long? Or was it too dangerous to remain in her hands? Her fingers tightened around the key. There were no simple answers here, no easy way out. I can't do this alone, she muttered under her breath, the words feeling like an admission of defeat. But it was the truth. She wasn't sure what was at stake or who was after it, but she knew there were forces beyond her understanding that would stop at nothing to get their hands on it. She had seen it in the man's eyes. The desperation, the threat. She wasn't the one who should decide. At least, not by herself. Harley pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in a long time. Her hands were still shaking as she brought the phone to her ear. She knew it was risky. She knew it could put them both in danger. But she needed help, and there was only one person who could give her the answers she needed. The phone rang twice before it was picked up. Hello? The voice on the other end was gravelly, familiar. Rick, Harley said, her voice tight. I need your help. There was a pause, a long one, and then Rick's voice came through, quieter this time. Harley, what's going on? I found it, she said, her heart thudding in her chest. I found the crate, the key, everything. It's real, and I don't know what to do with it. Rick's voice dropped to a low whisper. Where are you? Old military storage facility off Route 22, Harley replied, her mind racing. But Rick, this thing, it's not what I thought. It's not just some relic. There's something inside it, something powerful. And now, I'm not the only one who knows about it. Rick was silent for a moment, the tension in the air thick. You need to get out of there, Harley. Now, don't open it any further. I'll be there in an hour. You need to hide that device. If they find you, I can't hide it, she interrupted, her voice rising with frustration. I've already opened it, Rick. I already found it, and I can't walk away from it now. Rick sighed heavily on the other end, and Harley could almost hear the weight of his words through the line. You've already made the choice then, but you're not in this alone. I'll help you, but you need to trust me. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands. Harley's grip on the key tightened. The decision had been made. Now, all that was left was to survive it. I'll be waiting, she said, her voice resolute. I'll keep it safe for now. But whatever happens next, Rick, I can't do it alone. The sound of Harley's boots echoed through the hallway as she moved quickly toward the exit, the weight of the key in her pocket, a constant reminder of everything that had led to this moment. The device was safely locked away in the back of her truck, covered with a tarp to shield it from prying eyes. She didn't know what Rick would be able to do, but at least she had someone she could trust, a partner in this strange, dangerous game that had been thrust upon her. As she stepped into the cool night air, her mind raced. The facility was behind her now, but the threat was not over. Rick would be there soon, but there was still a gnawing sense of urgency that wouldn't leave her. The man who had confronted her earlier that warning, that unspoken promise, kept replaying in her head. They're coming for it. They won't stop until they have it. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, interrupting her thoughts. Harley pulled it out and answered without checking the number, knowing it was Rick. "You get out of there, okay?" Rick's voice was calm, but laced with an undercurrent of tension. "Yeah, I'm heading back now. The device is secure, at least for now," Harley replied, glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to be following her. "Good. You made the right call. But we don't have much time. You need to move quickly." Harley's heart skipped. "What do you mean? There's no way to know who else is tracking this. But I do know one thing. This thing is worth more than anything you can imagine. And there are people out there who will do whatever it takes to get their hands on it. People who won't hesitate to kill for it." Harley's grip tightened around the steering wheel as she started the truck. The engine roared to life, breaking the silence around her. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, already dreading the answer. Rick paused before speaking again, his voice steady. "I've got a safe place we can stash it for now. I'll meet you there in an hour. You don't stop until then. Don't go anywhere else. They'll be looking for you." Harley didn't hesitate. "I'll be there." She hung up the phone and drove, her thoughts focused on the road ahead. The night felt heavier now, every turn of the wheels taking her farther away from the past and deeper into a world she wasn't ready for but couldn't escape. A world where power, secrets, and violence intertwined, and she had been pulled in, whether she liked it or not. As she made her way through the winding roads, the truck's headlights cutting through the darkness, Harley found herself questioning everything. How had she ended up here? A simple mechanic, just trying to get by. And now she was in the middle of something far bigger than anything she could have imagined. She had no choice but to keep moving forward, though. This was the path she was on now, and it wouldn't let her turn back. Rick's warning repeated in her mind. There's no way to know who else is tracking this. Harley wasn't sure who the they were that he spoke of, but one thing was certain, this was just the beginning. The key, the device, the journal, they were all part of something much larger. And no matter how much she wanted to pretend it was over, Harley knew it was far from it. The night air was thick with the scent of rain, as she turned onto a dirt road leading to Rick's cabin on the outskirts of town. The headlights illuminated a small, dilapidated house at the end of the road, surrounded by trees and overgrown grass. Rick's cabin was secluded, hidden away from the world, and that was exactly why Harley had come. This was the place where secrets were buried, and for tonight, it would be the safest place for what she had uncovered. She pulled up to the cabin and killed the engine. The cabin sat in eerie silence, no lights on, no sign of life. Harley felt the weight of the world on her shoulders as she stepped out of the truck and approached the door. She could hear footsteps inside, slow, deliberate. Rick was waiting. The door creaked open, and Rick's silhouette appeared in the doorway. His face was more serious than Harley had ever seen it. "It's all real, isn't it?" he asked, his voice low, almost reluctant. Harley nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's real, and I don't know what to do with it." Rick stepped aside, motioning for her to come in. As she entered, he closed the door behind her, locking it with a resounding click. Inside, the cabin was sparsely furnished, but functional. A place to lie low, to stay hidden. "We'll figure it out," Rick said, his voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. "But it's going to take time, and we're going to need more help. There's too much at stake for us to handle alone." Harley stood still for a moment, her fingers brushing against the key in her pocket. She was exhausted physically, mentally, but she knew she couldn't afford to rest. Not now. "I didn't ask for this," she said quietly, staring at the device in her truck. "I never wanted any of this, but now that I'm in it, I don't know how to get out." Rick looked at her, his expression softening. "You're not getting out, Harley. There's no way to walk away from this now. But we'll figure it out. We'll keep it safe, and we'll take it one step at a time." For the first time in a long while, Harley felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this. The key had unlocked a door she couldn't close. But with Rick by her side, She knew that for the first time in her life, she might be ready to face whatever came next.